Oh, well, with that, hi, friends. Welcome to the Making Spaces podcast, a podcast about making space both literally and figuratively for other people. I am Sarah Heath, and this is my co-host,
Josie Jimenez. Welcome back.
Welcome back. So yeah, we haven't been recording for a while, but we're excited about starting to record again. Josie, you want to tell us a little bit about who we are speaking to today? That's my
Yes. Today we... Thanks, Mom. Today we are talking to Savannah Ray. It's Carreno, right?
Carreno.
Carreno?
Yes.
Carreno? Yes. I should know that as a Hispanic woman, but it's fine. She is a writer, speaker, and culture lover, according to her Instagram bio. She is the founder of The Juice Edit, which is super fun. You should follow that on Instagram. And pastor of Please Elaborate, which is a monthly... You have like a topic every month, right? And then you just do like video series and stuff.
Love that.
It's all fun
that
stuff.
On your website.
Check it out.
Yeah. Savannah, we are really excited to have you on here. You're also someone who knows how to use TikTok, which is, I feel ancient.
Right.
Because I don't understand it.
Or Reels, or I don't know the difference between Reels and TikTok.
I don't know, but I know that you point at things and then things show up.
And I just got
onto
Clubhouse, and let me tell you, that is also a different world. I have an identity crisis. I think I'm a Gen Zer, and I'm not. I'm very much a millennial, but I want to be a Gen Zer. And so here I am.
Here I am.
It's also different.
Somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I don't get it. I got on Clubhouse recently as well. I don't understand. There's no pictures. There's no...
Yeah.
I'm a picture
What is it?
person.
Do you remember like Instant Messenger? You know, where you could have like your way. It's kind of like that, but more refined. Where get in chat rooms.
You guys don't even know. You guys don't know. You guys don't know about being in college and you're down the hallway and you hear ding, and you think it might be him. He might have just instant messaged me.
I was probably in
for dinner.
School.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
So he might be instant messaging me to meet him for dinner. And then you like run down the hallway and then it's just because we didn't text. Did
you have away messages where like your away message is a big deal?
Oh yeah. And they had to be like a little suggestive, like I could be having mysterious. The time of my life.
Right.
I could be studying. None of your business. But that noise, like just walking down a college hallway, happening all the way down. And we just thought we were space age. Little did we know, friends. Little did we know that
now you got teenagers and crop tops doing complicated dances.
We'd be clubbing, which is now apparently just a website.
I feel like an old woman. Yeah, I feel like an old woman when I see these little 13-year-olds dressing how we dress now or have never dressed. And I'm like, where is your parent? Where is your mother?
Do you have a mortgage?
I'm like an old
or does
woman.
Your mom pack your lunch?
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, guys,
wearing high heels at 13.
Well, here's the thing too. And I'll say this before we ask you the opening question, Savannah, because I think we're really getting to the heart of making space for people. I would like to talk about something that I feel like is something we really just have not addressed, is that these high-waisted mom jeans that are ripped to the point that I can see your entire knee and then also all of your thigh.
Right.
Should look ugly on you. But here's the thing that I don't understand about what's happening. Here where I live, it's like they don't have to go through the awkward stage.
No, they skip it.
Which is like, I'm still in mine, but they're like, these kids are like, I look at them and I'm like, yeah, you look great.
Whatever you're doing, it's working.
Yeah. And there's no like, where they look like they don't know what to do with their like I spent 10 years of my adolescence just sort of like as like a blob of not sure what to do with myself moments. And I would try like a fashion, like I did like the blossom hat, which you guys worry about it.
Yes.
I tried leggings in a way that I'm not proud of, but
we all tried the leggings and the oversized sweater, the blue eyeshadow. I made that mistake.
The jean skirt over the leggings.
Right. Oh. Yes. The layering. And we loved the sweaters that came right up to the nipple.
Yes. But those are back.
Those are, I hope not. Oh my gosh, those in gauchos need to stay in the pack.
Oh no, they're back. They're back because I went to Urban Outfitters for the first time in like 15 years yesterday. And I'll say this, nothing was full length. And when you are my age, I am a fit human, but I will say that that is not anyone. No one is requesting that look on me.
That's nobody's business.
That's nobody needs, because like these 2 abs are fit, the rest is not for public.
No one is looking for a collab with my non-existent pack. Like, we're not partnering with that.
No. So now we've solved that. Hey, Savannah, so glad to have you on here. You're clearly one of our people. Question for you: where is one of your faces? Where is one of your favorite spaces, and why?
Favorite space and why? Okay. Well, I feel like there's 2 answers to that now because we're in COVID, right? So like during COVID, my favorite space is in my home because it's where I work, it's where I do podcasts, it's where I film a lot of stuff for the church that I'm a pastor at. And so it is my favorite space in that it is quite literally the only space where I can fully exercise all of my faculties and kind of do all the things. But outside of COVID in quote unquote normal times, my favorite space was when I was living in Pasadena, because I live in Sacramento now, and we have lived in Sacramento since June. So we've only lived in Sacramento during a pandemic. And in Pasadena is where we lived when the pandemic wasn't around. And so my favorite really third space that we went to was a coffee shop / breakfast place. And we would go every Sunday. And they had the best breakfast burritos. I cannot explain. It was their manna from heaven, just so spectacular. And also we would go every single Sunday and sometimes during the week. And so we knew the baristas and the waiters and the waitresses. And I remember one of the last times we went before we moved and the pandemic hit, I was there just working. And this senior in high school, he came over to me and he saw me working. I was in grad school at the time and I was working on a paper. And he said, I see you're working on a paper. Could you proofread my college application?
Stop it. Stop it.
Yeah, it was so cute. And so we sat down and it was that kind of environment. Those kind of things happened all the time. We would sit down and we went through his college application. And I said, all right, you've got to, run on here. Let's work through this independent clause, just kind of fixing things. And, what's your thesis? And
I don't know what an independent clause is.
But it was just the perfect example of like, oh, this is why we love this place. Like there were so many times like that where we would sit down and you'd see someone you knew, or where I worked was just down the road. And so I'd run into coworkers all the time. It was our meeting place. It was our
what coffee shop, as Californians, we want to know, what coffee shop was it?
It's in Monrovia. I don't know if it's still the same name. Hold on, it might actually, I think its name might have changed. It's on Myrtle. Where do you guys live?
Mm-hmm. So I'm in Costa Mesa.
And I'm in Tustin, but I went to APU, so I know Monrovia real well.
Okay, hold on. I actually think it's a different name now, which is sad. Oh no, it isn't. Okay, it's Gray and Cash. I literally thought the name had changed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know Gray and Cash. Okay, it's fantastic. For some reason, I thought that they had changed their name, but they're not. They're still there. Gray and Cash. It's fantastic. Highly recommend. Best cold brew around.
Ooh, that's a challenge.
I'm a cold brew fan.
This podcast was brought to you by Gray and Cash.
Oh my gosh. If this was the case, we have featured so many coffee shops. We have featured so many, if people would just pay us for us mentioning things. We're just still hoping FabFitFun will just start sending us boxes. That would be fantastic.
That's the real dream, right? Just free stuff.
Free stuff.
Free stuff that you can give to people as presents. So you don't have to spend money on presents.
Exactly.
I don't know why that's my mentality. Presents.
I do. Savannah, when you created the Juice Edit, and I did a deep dive recently into all your work. It's fantastic. I love it. You really did a lot of sort of creating space for folks who were, I'm not going to even call it pre-deconstruction. So folks who were just sort of asking questions. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into that sort of work. You went to Fuller, correct?
Yes.
pretty good school. Not bad, not bad. We've had a couple Fuller folks on here. I went
Yeah.
to Duke, but I appreciate Fuller.
Nice.
Okay, bougie over here.
I actually, fun fact, I got accepted to Duke, and I was about to accept it when I got my Fuller, and Fuller was my first choice. And I didn't think I got into Fuller, and I was like, well, I guess I'll Duke is, hello, it's Duke. Yeah, I'll slum it at Duke.
I guess I'll go to Duke.
Fuller was my first choice because I wanted to go to California because I was coming from New York. And so I was like, oh, I want to go to the Sunshine State. And then I thought I didn't get in, but I got the letter late. So I love Duke. I absolutely love Duke. Toured it. Beautiful.
But California will always win.
Yeah, I mean,
hear that, everybody?
North Carolina is like a tiny version of California. We had mountains. We had the ocean. I prefer the ocean there because it's warm.
You can swim in it. Yeah, I'm from Nashville, so I went to North Carolina and South Carolina all the time.
I also love Nashville. My publisher is there, so I used to go quite a bit. I love it there.
So good.
So Savannah, tell us about getting into the Juice Edit. What does the Juice? I'm gonna let you tell.
Yeah. So the Juice. Our motto is ask questions, explore perspectives, hold your opinions loosely. Otherwise, you'll choke on them. So
Amen.
That's kind of like our motto. I created it because I actually didn't grow up in the church. I grew up as my family was very much, I call them CEOs, Christmas and Easter only. We would go to church, a couple times a year, maybe more. It's the South, so you're Christian by proxy, by culture. But I didn't really, my family wasn't one to go to church every single Sunday. We didn't like pray together or, talk about God really. And that's no diss to my family. I absolutely love my family. It was just not part of our upbringing so much. And then my mom got really, really sick when I was in middle school. And we weren't really sure if she was going to pull through. It got really serious and eventually turned into addiction and substance abuse. And she actually passed away this past October. But love you, Mom. But through that whole traumatic experience, as a kid, I was in those formative years where you're, 13, 14, and you're trying to find yourself. And I ended up finding a relationship with God on my own, outside of the influence. I didn't grow up going to youth camp or church camp or any of the other 30 camps that every Christian apparently goes to. I didn't hear of Hillsong or the acoustic version of Oceans until I was in my 20s. And so there's this delay, but I also think it was such a blessing because I grew up and formed my faith solely out of a relationship with God and discovery and asking questions. And I guess I was around 15 or 16 when I was at a Church of Christ private school where I was hearing things and hearing doctrinal facts and hearing things about Jesus that weren't really meshing or jiving with the relationship I was having with God.
Oh, you do that mid-rash. Okay.
Yeah. And so I was, here I am trying to discover and develop this relationship with God out of desperation, really, out of, okay, my life is crumbling around me. Seems like the last ditch effort to survive in this world is having a relationship with God. And at the same time being put in a private school where everyone was having this, apparently everyone knew every Bible verse. They knew exactly what they believed and why they believed it at 14 or 15. And so what I was learning in high school about God in this private school wasn't jiving with what I was experiencing. And so through high school, I had this constant conflict of, okay, what I'm learning about and reading about in my Bible, because I ended up just reading the Bible like 3 times in high school, like cover to cover, trying to figure out. I was like, some of y'all are wrong because this is not what this says. And I was like, my textbook is different. And so there was this constant back and forth of what I'm hearing from these Christians is not meshing with what this Bible says. And this isn't making sense to me. So I was constantly trying to reconcile those two forces in my life, my relationship with God and my experience in the school and in the established church. And so then in college, I went to college and I got planted in a church for the first time, really my first time having my own church that I would go to and show up at and serve at and volunteer at. And that's where I got a lot of my questions answered. And that was when, because I was at a church in Manhattan, and Manhattan is very different than Nashville. And so in college, I was suddenly placed in an environment where everyone else was asking questions. You had people from every walk of life, Black, white, brown, Puerto Rican, or Haitian, it doesn't matter, like everyone there, a gay, straight, bi, lesbian, like whoever was there and asking questions and holding Christians accountable for the book that they claim to believe in. And so in college, I was like, oh, these are my people. Like, let's ask questions, let's explore perspectives, let's hold opinions and have dialogue. And out of that, I started the Juice. It used to be called something different because it was literally called like the name of the blog .wix.com. It's just like old school. And I started it just to have those conversations on a digital platform. And it started really because I knew I wanted to become a preacher and preach. So I thought, I'll create this website to get in the habit of creating messages on a weekly basis like a preacher would. And that's really how it started. And so really it started just out of a continuation of conversation and curiosity. And now it has snowballed into kind of a cross. I always say it's where pop culture and theology intersect awkwardly. Because pop culture is something that I love and I think tells us a lot about.
This could everything. 100% be the name of my memoir. She's where culture.
Yeah. Theology collide awkwardly. So it morphed. It started as hey, let's have some hard conversations about what the Bible is saying. And now it's, okay, what is pop culture telling us about our world? Right. What is trending and what is God telling us through that? And let's have a discussion about it. Not let me tell you what's right, but hey, this is what I found. Can we talk about it? And so that's kind of how it started and then snowballed into that intersection.
That's amazing. I was visiting a friend in New York and I attended a church in Manhattan because my friend, Michael Gungor, his brother, David Gungor, went to it. Mm-hmm. What church were you part of there?
I was Hillsong, New York City.
You were Hillsong, you know? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I forget the name of their church.
Reformer too, or no, starts with an R. There's another.
I cannot remember, but it was a really cool church. But the reason I was wondering if it was that, because they really did do a great job of asking questions. And I find it, we've been doing this show now. Gosh, this is our third season, but it's almost been a whole year since we started working on it. So we do like 20 episodes per season. Yeah. And we've been talking about sort of how people get into the different things. And it always starts with the word that you use, which is curiosity. So making space for others always starts with this like sense of curiosity for yourself, or like, why doesn't this space exist? And I love that part of your story is, I was in a place where I had encountered God, not in a youth group setting, not in a church setting. And so I had this idea of God or this experience of God. And then they tried to put that into a box. And I was like, wait a minute.
These don't match.
Yeah. What do I? And I think that's the case for a lot of people. I think you're right. A lot of people do the opposite, right? Mm-hmm. So they have been given this God and then they go, oh, this box is nice. And so a lot of the people you've experienced in college, before college or high school that were like, I know all the answers. I did I grew up in Canada. My mom was very sick this totally makes sense, when I was in middle school, but I grew up in post-Christian culture. So even though I was part of a youth group and all this sort of stuff,
okay.
I moved to Mississippi when I was in high school. So had that experience of exactly what you're talking about, where you meet 15-year-olds who are like, no, this is the truth. And man, I wanted it to just so be like the cosmic Santa Claus.
Your God is so simple.
I want your God. That's awesome. Right. And I tried so hard and I could not. I tried to be a good Christian, whatever that was.
Right.
I didn't know what I just tried. So, I joke around and tell the story of the first time I started dating a guy and I told my friends in Canada, I was like, guys, I'm dating this guy and he just really loves the Lord. And my friends were like, what does that mean? Like,
yeah.
are you in a cult? Like, what is that?
No, thank you.
But that was a language that I was now
Right.
surrounded by. And so I think it's fun to see someone like you who is processing it from maybe what's the opposite experience of so many
Right.
people.
Exactly.
You were sort of not
Yeah.
deconstructing, you were reconstructing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I had a pretty similar experience in that I was also that kid who was like, I don't know what you're saying, so I'm just going to read this thing 3 times. It was also 3
Yeah, let's
times as
see.
well. Yeah. Although I skipped Revelation a couple times because I was in middle school and it was
You're like,
scary.
"Oh, this is dark."
So, you know, I didn't.
This is dark.
Yeah. Never mind.
Ooh, I don't like this.
I mean,
read Harry
I
Potter,
grew
I
up
get
in
it.
a yeah. I grew up in a Latin church, Latin Pentecostal church, which is very different.
As one
When you
does.
say Latin, do
So
you mean
I didn't
Latin
get
American or Latin, like, as in Latin?
Latin
Latin
American.
American.
Latin American.
I grew
Okay.
up, yeah. Yeah, no. I
Look what
wasn't
we're
like
doing,
old
like,
school
here
Catholic or
he is.
anything.
She's fancy.
No. Yeah, it was very much like dancing in the aisles,
Nice.
speaking in tongues, exorcisms, the whole 9 yards. And I was a good little Christian girl. I was in the worship band. And I was at church 6-7 days a week, every week for my whole childhood.
You're definitely going
And
to
then,
For sure. And has a
yeah,
crown with a lot of stones.
well,
She has
yeah.
so many
I
stones.
don't know about now.
No, not
I don't know
now.
about
No,
but
you're in trouble now.
yeah. And my dad always says that I was the annoying kid. It was like, but why? Why? That was my favorite thing. Is like I had this curiosity of why? Why do I have to not be as cool as boys because I'm a girl? Why
Right.
does Jesus not love me as much because I'm a girl? And I was like a leader. I was a child leader. And then eventually the church things started happening to where I was like, I don't know about this. And the church was very much one person. There was no power structure. There's no like, what is it called in elder boards and shit like that. There was nothing like that. Right. And money was going places. And I went to sleep over at the pastor's house with one of his daughters. And I was like, oh, this is a very large house. And our church is in the hood, sir. And we're poor. What's happening here? So I ended up leaving pretty soon. I was a 13-year-old, like, I need to find a different church. I need to find my own faith.
You knew
I was
that
a really
those two
annoying
things
kid.
didn't reconcile. Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of pushback that comes back from that, especially from my parents, even today. My dad always says, like, you just want to write your own Bible. I was like, I'm just reading the one that's provided. All right. I'm just,
Right.
Maybe I'm not reading the King James version in Spanish, but this is generally the same gist, It's pretty funny.
I'm still I'm still in my head imagining you in a Pentecostal Latin church, like actually like Latin Pentecostal, and that's in my mind.
yeah.
But ask the question you're gonna ask because that is still in my mind.
Yeah, I was just wondering how your family dynamics shifted after that whole faith transition from being in a CEO household, as you so lovingly put it, to now. Like you're a pastor, you're in it.
Yeah. I think the dynamics changed for sure over the last several years, but I don't think it was due to my faith and evolution of my beliefs. I think it had more to do with what was going on in our family at the time, and how a family recovers from trauma, especially, there's the concentrated trauma of, a car accident or a sudden death. And then there's the long-term trauma of, addiction and substance abuse. And so I think the dynamics changed more because of that. But I have now a great relationship. My dad I would say he's one of my best friends. I kind of go to him for everything. And we talk about God, we talk about faith. And it's such a, I want to practice what I preach. And so it's a space when I have those conversations with, my sister Grace, who is a Christian and has a great relationship with God, or my dad, and we have those discussions. There is such a space for curiosity and also for the I don't knows. My sister or my dad, sometimes will be like, Savannah, what do you think about this? Insert common religious controversial topic. And I try to let them hear me say, I don't know. I might be a pastor, but I'm 27 years old. Like there's so much stuff that I don't know. And
y'all are babies.
Right. And I think we all at some point, I don't know, sometimes there's this, we get to the age where we think, okay, now I'm not allowed to say I don't know. It's like we should never, ever get to this stage in life where we can't say I don't know, or we're too good to say I don't know. And I think that is probably the dynamic or the piece of the puzzle that's entered our family dynamic over the last few years, is because of trauma and because of having to rebuild trust. There is this humility and vulnerability that has had to emerge in our family, where we've had to get comfortable saying, I don't know. I don't know how we overcome this. I don't know how we get past this. I don't know how we're going to grieve the loss of our mom as a family. I don't know how to navigate. I have two incredible stepsisters and incredible stepmom. And there's a lot of I don't knows. We're like, how do we navigate this? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm 27, but I have a stepmom that she's been my stepmom for maybe 2 years now, almost. And so it's a dynamic that not everyone faces. Normally when you have a stepmom, you're younger and she's technically like your legal guardian for a while. Like, she's not my legal guardian.
Anything.
Right. And so there's a lot of like, how do we navigate this? I don't know. And it's that I don't know. And so much grace and forgiveness has had to occur. It's either we show grace and we forgive, or this family doesn't survive. It was that kind of mentality over the last several years, that it wasn't so much, okay, all my family's Christian now. Really, it was just, we had a lot of events in our lives that led us to no choice but to show grace, forgive, be patient, listen, and understand the other person in this new dynamic, and be okay saying, I don't know. And that kind of dynamic shift, because my family wasn't like that growing up, now having this open, vulnerable, free to be kind, but say what you need to say kind of mentality, that's the dynamic shift that has occurred. And I think my relationship with God and what I've learned about who God is and who Jesus is brings to the table a something that can only benefit that dynamic. And I hope, knock on wood, I hope that my beliefs and my relationship with God encourages and is a safe space, allows for a safe space with my family. But yeah, I think it's more of what we've gone through has allowed for that dynamic, and almost the recognition and realization that, oh, you have to have grace and forgiveness if you're going to survive in this world and enjoy any of the process.
Well, I think that's the thing that so many people are longing to name and they don't know how to name, right. Is that, even think about like terms like adulting. Adulting is hard. I think because there was this lie that so many generations thought they had to live up to, that by a certain age, I know everything. So, and I am assured, and the world becomes black and white. And the truth is that everyone felt this sense when they got there, like, I don't know how to do this. So I must have missed something. I am lacking in something. I don't have the knowledge I need to have. And so some people, because of the cultural influence, thought you had to double down, right? Now I need to be really self-assured. So think about preachers in like the 70s, 60s, and 70s, when the world around you feels very sort of like societal shifts and all the stuff, people will double down and hold on to things with such a sense of like, well, I know this to be the truth. So a lot of that truth language came out of that time. And I what I'm hearing folks say again and again is there something wrong with me for not knowing? And the beauty of what you're saying, what you're offering is a relationship can continue. Our relationship can only grow if I'm able to tell you that I don't know. Now, there are some areas that I might have some things that I can share with you, but I'm not going to be the expert. And I think that's the thing that has happened. They're actually calling this a societal shift. Is called the death of the expert, right? So this idea that we used to think, okay, I'm just trying to become the expert. And then we get to know the expert really well. And the expert does not know what they're doing. I mean, think about how many, I'm going to say male only, not trying to be, but male pastors who are right around 50s, 60s, who are having massive things that are happening behind the door that all of us are being exposed to in this moment. I think a lot of that is a symptom of having to know and then having to continue to profess that you know, because you don't get to be in relationship in the same way. Like if I just told Josie, like, look, well, first of all, she's an 8, so this would never happen. But if I were to just tell Josie, like, I know all the answers, I've done all the work, I have a degree in it, it stops relationship, right? So even if you said to your family, like, look, in my ministry, I've encountered addiction. I know what it looks like. I know what God thinks about it. So it's just such a blocker in a relationship, like ender. Like, how do you keep going in conversation with that versus this like openness to like, here's what I'm bringing to the table, and allows me to then see what you're bringing to the table. And quite often, it's the scariest thing, right? Because we are so afraid of not knowing, and then we experience not knowing, and we realize that that's where the mystery, and I think for me, that's where the divine exists, is in that like mystery of not knowing, like the expansiveness of not knowing. Because the more you don't know, the more you don't know. Like it just keeps opening up. And I love that.
I think we are scared of mystery. I think our culture and, you know, especially, I don't mean to call out, we'll call them fundamentalists.
But in the fun and fundamentalists.
I'm very comfortable with that.
So here's the deal. I know a lot of great people that consider themselves fundamentalists. And I think the danger, you know, there are pros and cons, there are hiccups in any denomination, in any sect, because we're human made, right? We made these sects and we made these denominations for ourselves. So of course they're going to be flawed because they were made by flawed humans. I think one of the flaws and challenges that you see with the fundamentalist and or overtly evangelical denominations, if you will, is the idolatry of the knowing and the fear of the mystery.
Right.
And it's so dangerous because the minute you become afraid of mystery, you become afraid to discover anything else about God. What you know, not only what you know, not only is it limited, it's also flawed, because if you claim to know that, no, God is white, God is a man, God is the prosperity gospel, and I know that gun control is this, abortion is this, women are this, and this, and this, and this is what I believe, and this is right. Okay, well, if that's your belief, and you interpret everything else around it as wrong, well, now you've made your God so small, so immalleable, so rigid that even you can't rely on that God. That is going to break and shatter. It is such a fragile, sensitive God that shatters at the opposition of humanity. That's not God. That's an idol. That's a porcelain idol that shatters in the wake of a human with a different belief. If your God can't sustain a dialogue with someone else, that's not God. That's a porcelain, hollow idol that you have made your God that will not sustain you through life. And I see that as such an issue and such the root of most of the conflict that we see in the capital C church these days.
Yeah, I recently posted on my Facebook. I like to post controversial questions on my Facebook and have my friends answer them. It's such an 8 thing to do. It's such a fun time. But I recently posted a question saying, like, what's stopping you from using gender neutral terms when you refer to God? One person was like, just put the Bible, and I was like, all right, you need to read it again. I didn't say anything, right? But somebody else was like, well, in the original language, they did this and that, and it's a gendered term and blah, blah, blah. And then I simply said, like, well, I speak Spanish, and there's gendered things in Spanish. I don't use the same gendered terms in English just because I use them in Spanish. So why do I have to uphold this view of a male God because it's a different language? And I mean, the power dynamics back then, you know, the patriarchy's existed for a very long time. And at one point somebody said, like, why don't you fear God? Like, if this is God's preferred pronouns, why don't you fear God and respect that? And I was like, I don't fear the wrath of God. I don't. I'm very comfortable with asking questions. I'm very comfortable with saying, like, I think gay people are going to heaven. And if I'm wrong, I'm going to get there and be like, you're fucked up. But whatever, that's your deal, right? I'm very comfortable with saying, hey, God, that's fucked up. I don't care, right? Because I don't fear God. I believe in a God of love. I believe that God, if God is love, then my existence has to revolve around love. I don't have to fear. I don't have to be like, well, the Bible says this, so I better really adhere to it because otherwise I'm going to go to hell instantly. Like, what is, like you said, like they have this really immalleable God. And if you step out of bounds, it's like this huge tragedy. So, I mean, I get the fear, but the Lord tells you not to fear.
Josie, you just proved Savannah's point with this idea of, if I think I know all the answers. So when you, is like an object lesson, when you said, I posted this question about why don't you use gendered language or whatever, and the joke is people come on my staff and they're like, oh my gosh, now we have to use all these different pronouns for God, and it's fun. And I got in trouble in seminary my first semester for using male language around God. And not in trouble. They were just like, why do you always use male language, right? And I remember being like, well, because that's how it's written in the Bible, and the original language. And so when you asked that question, I went into my knowing, right? I went into my knowing and I thought, okay, well, well, actually, yeah, it is in a lot of the original languages, right? I put out my I know the things. Yeah. It is a male, and then I had never thought until this moment, this idea that my second language is French, and we do speak about things with la or le, so male and female, but I wouldn't tell you that couch has to be female. I don't think this couch is gendered. In no less ways do I believe this couch is real or not, but it doesn't need to be a female for me. And it's the beauty of allowing ourselves to be open to the experience. And I think only people who are sitting in, often the people that are full of this vitriol, and I'm sure you get some of that amazing feedback on your very public format, Savannah. I'm sure people have so many things they just want to share with you, the knowledge that they just want to impart. And when people do that, what you realize is they're just so afraid of exactly what you're talking about. Like if it's one crack, we talk about the slippery slope, right? Then everything goes out the door. But if you haven't learned what an expansive mystery looks like, then it all will crumble when that thing that you thought was the stable thing, when that doesn't work in that way. And I think maybe having that experience of having a mom who wasn't a for sure thing in a way that, so our parental figures are supposed to be our primary stability. And for so many of us, that's not the case. I'm lucky that my parents tried to be, but my mom also was sick when I was growing up. And so there is that, when you already know that, you kind of get to be ahead of the game a little bit. I remember as much as I looked at some of the precious lambs that were 15 and so self-assured and knew, this is what the Bible said. And here I am going, wow, that's going to really suck later. You know what I mean? I was like, I wish
it's really hard for you to think about later.
Yeah. It's really going to suck later. Because you can't force anyone to be where they're not. Right.
Right.
And so.
And I think dialogue.
And these are the types of conversations. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, I think dialogue is a huge part of that too. Yeah.
Huge.
Right. And I was going to say, this is what you do on Please Elaborate. You have these hard conversations like we're just having right now.
I want to know what Please Elaborate is. It's a church. Oh. I don't know why I just did this with my fingers. That's not even a quote. What is this?
Oh, that's so funny. No, yeah. And someone the other day called it a podcast, and I was like, yeah, close enough. So I'm a pastor at Capital Christian Center, which is a church here in Sacramento. Okay. And our college and young adult ministry I created, they were so gracious and were like, just you build it. And so I got to create this ministry, and I called it Please Elaborate, because I wanted the title to be active. I didn't want it to be something, no offense to young adult ministry, I didn't want it to be something called The Gathering or The Hangout, or what are some other ones? Connect. I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be, please elaborate, and put it on you, put it on the listener, put it on the participant to say, we're gonna elaborate on some things. And so in the middle of a conversation, I often say, can you elaborate on that? instead of "you're wrong," I just say, can you elaborate? And so that's where it all started. And so we do hangouts in person here in Sacramento, but because of COVID, I launched this community, this ministry in COVID. And so it had to be 100% online at first. And so I had to launch a college and young adult ministry online with absolutely no connections in a city that I had just moved to 30 days before.
Perfect.
And so that,
yeah,
right.
Sounds great.
Great,
Rock on.
great starting point. And so I started it on Instagram, and instead of doing weekly gatherings, I would do weekly video conversations where I would launch a topic and say, hey, this is what we're talking about. We started, it was right after the events with George Floyd. And so we started with racism in America. And my first video that went out was a history of, just a light topic. I wanted to ease everyone into it. And so the first video was a history of the word race and unpacking the history of that word in its languages and its meanings through the past, 600 years, and how that's changed and how it's impacted how we view people. And then we got into conversations with some other amazing people. And through that, through Please Elaborate, I wanted to create a community where we could have conversations, not commandments, and not me saying, this is what the Bible says, this is right. If you don't believe this, you are going to hell. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be, hey, here's this topic that a lot of young adults are struggling with: identity, money, food. We've talked about eating disorders. We've talked about finances and 401ks. We've talked about racism in education. Like, we're touching everything. And so in the videos, I'll say, this is what we're talking about. Here are here's some passages in the Bible that mention this topic, and here's some context for how it was understood and what we can gather so far. What do you think? And then I'll put up a little guide where someone can kind of work through it and evaluate their own theology of money or food or, et cetera, et cetera. And as we're going to begin pivoting to in person, and that'll be a whole different, evolution of this thing. But it's different. Sometimes people ask how it's different than the juice. The juice is pop culture, right? That's, we're looking at Spotify's top songs and what it says about culture. We're looking at, movies that have come out. We're looking at events and what we can gather from them. Please Elaborate is focused on college and young adults, and we're talking about topics that are pertinent to their daily life: identity and purpose, money, career, family dynamics, all of those things. It's targeted towards college and young adults, and unpacking and learning to dialogue about topics and discuss things, have a conversation, not a command. And so that's how they're different. But yeah, it's a college and young adult ministry umbrellaed within Capital Christian Center, a church here in Sacramento.
Capital Christian Center. That is an unfortunate name. That feels very like capitalism, but that's not what it is.
It's because we're in Sacramento.
Hey, your church name sucks.
No, it's because it's the capital of the state.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm just saying Capital Christian Center made me nervous. Don't laugh
like we're
at
the
me.
capital.
Well, we're First
it's just
United.
Funny that you would just be like, we have a guest, and you're just like, your church name sucks, dude. Like, what the heck?
Sucked. That is not what I said.
Oh my God. Wow.
We fight. It's fine. Everything's fine. Savannah, we have loved chatting with you. People can check you out, obviously, on thejuiceedit.com. And if they want to check out these conversations, which I love, how can they find it?
Everything. I just try and direct everyone. Just go to my bio. It's all there. The juice is there. Please Elaborate's there. I'm at Savannah Ray Carreno. And the links to both of my children, the juice and PE, are there.
Oh, I love Please Elaborate is PE. See, I like that name. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not judging your name. All right. So the last question that we always ask is, if there's one thing, just one thing that is a tangible way that someone can make space either for themselves or others, what would you say that is?
I would say show up. And I'm talking to young adults that are fickle and squirrely when it comes to committing to plans. Show up. if you say you're going to meet someone somewhere, if you say you're going to have a phone call, if you say you're going to be in a Zoom call, if you say you're going to show up to an event, don't back out last minute. Don't not show up. We are in a time in a world where we need community more than ever, and not showing up, says a lot. That says your time wasn't worth anything to me. That says I'm okay with you wasting a day thinking I was coming and then me not. It says so much. And so show up to things. Just show up. I know that there's this whole culture of young people making plans and then wanting to cancel them and not do anything. I get it. It's tiring, but put your pants on and go have a socially distanced coffee. Put a nice shirt on. We all did it. We meet. You're not going to die from having a 40-minute Zoom call with a friend or having a FaceTime. I always joke that I'm in the ministry of the non-existent, like college and young adults. You put together an event and 40 people will RSVP and 11 people will show up, and they'll never mention it. They'll just not show up. And then you see them in person and they won't be like, oh, I'm sorry, my cat died. I'll be like, where were you? And they're like, oh yeah, sorry, I couldn't make it. I'm like, you're an adult.
Why?
Show up.
Show up. Yep. Because we need you. I think that's the point too, is I think as we talk about this space making idea, you showing up adds something.
Right.
And when you're not there, we miss it. And I think I absolutely agree that society has been too, there has been a lot of obligation that's been not great. Like you have to go to church every week. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but there is something to let your word be your word. When you tell me you're going to show up to something, don't try to get out of it unless you have to, obviously. But you're absolutely correct, because I think there is, there's so much to be missed when you're not there. That's a very California thing too. Coming as someone who came from the East Coast here, you just never said you were going to be at something. Like in the South, if you RSVP'd for something and didn't show up,
faux pas.
You just don't even show your face there ever again.
Up and you were sucked into the pit
directly into it. Yeah. Yes. And whereas here it's like, and sometimes what and what is hard is that it's because something that they deemed, exactly what you're saying, what they deemed as a better use of their time came up. And that can feel othering in a way that, really is the opposite of who we want to be and how we want to show up in the world. So thank you so much, Savannah, for joining us this week. Thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you for being out there and helping folks ask the curious questions and making space for mystery. I think that's really important. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Josie, where can people find us?
Well, everybody, you can find us on Instagram at Making Spaces Podcast. You can find us online at makingspacespodcast.com. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/Making Spaces Podcast. Give us your money and we'll give you something in return. I promise. Maybe.
No, it's true. We have a maker's box that I freaking love. I'm so excited about it.
Yeah, we will give you something. I don't know why I said maybe. You ruined my flow. What else?
Sorry.
That was it. Well, so everything is on our website, makingspacesPodcast.com.
It's true. And we're joining a new network of incredible podcasters. Pretty excited about that. So the Irreverent Media Group, just full of the most irreverent humans, the Dirty Rotten Church Kids, the ex-evangelicals, the Mason, whose last name I need to learn how to pronounce. Just a great group of humans who are doing incredible work, and we're excited. We'll be sharing more about them and about that group over the next couple of months. But until then, friends, thanks for joining us this week. Join us next week where we'll be
saving a space for you. Bye.
Bye.